Well, we have our first class tuning from this upcoming season, which is going to start next week or this week, depends on when you're going to see it. It's going to go live once the season starts. And we have a lot of changes, which are very impactful for PvE and PvP. I'm more of a PvP guy, but I also try to understand how the PvE meta is, and let's start right away. So we have the first tuning being Unholy Decay. Now Unholy Decay got a 2 set bonus change, which is going to improve the death call and epidemic by 4.5% per stack, and it was 3%. So it means that it is actually quite good. It's not like some people say that it's only 1.5% increase. No, that's not true. You have to think about stacks and that you are going to have more stacks. It is a melee bonus, so a melee tier set, so it will be up most of the time. You will always have that increase. It's not like healers or range DPS where it's like procs or conditions when it actually happens. So it's actually a very big change. For PvP, it's still nerfed. It's a nerfed version, but it will come out a bit better, obviously, since it is buffed by like 1.5% increase compared to what we had before. So it's going to be quite noticeable. Having Demon Hunter, so they are trying to improve Alterachi Riva, which is not really what you're playing in PvP, but it's always going to be welcome. River's Mark now increases damage dealt to its target by 6%. Thrill of the Fight is nerfed by 5%, so it's going to be 15% instead of 20%. And the 2 set bonus winning streaks chance to activate increased by 25%, which is a very big buff. Now, is it going to be like gameplay changing? I don't know. We'll have to see if it's meta changing or whatever. Feral Druid actually having Sunfire damage reduced by 40%. That is something I don't understand as a PvPer, because as a Feral Druid you would actually never press Sunfire. So if someone can explain me in the PvE like side of things why that is a nerf and why it is a thing, let me know. This is a nerf because obviously Lycara's teaching's mastery bonus for granted from being in Moonkin form reduced by 66%, because people were turning into Moonkin form, getting the mastery buff, and then doing a rip. And since there is still a bit of snapshotting in the Feral Druid gameplay, if you have like a big increase on the mastery thing when you're going to apply the dot, it actually is a big dot, and actually a lot of damage can be applied. So they don't want to have that gameplay, but I wonder why they put that talent in the first place if they don't want people to do and actively go for that. I feel like it's more of a restoration shaman, like a restoration druid talent, where it's more acceptable to like literally morph into specific forms to get those stats. While, for example, as a feral druid, they don't really want you to like go into moonkin form to get the buff and directly do a cat form thing. I don't know what they expected. I think that talent will have to be gone anyways. It was a good test, but I think they don't want the gameplay that they actually intended it to be, and players are just too smart. They're going to use any advantage to make the most DPS possible as a PvP player, also as a PvE player, and that is going to have repercussion with how this design is. So it has to be changed, or like on a CD, if it has like some sort of a CD, people will have to think about when they abuse that aspect. Devastation Evoker, Firestorm damage increased by 40%. That's a big increase for a AoE ability. I don't know. In PvE, I don't know if you're playing with that. In PvP, you just simply don't, because the path to Firestorm is not efficient. They don't have enough points for that. I do believe if Firestorm was like some sort of a baseline spell, it could be maybe a bit more interesting for PvP, but in PvE, I don't know. But in PvP, you never really play around Firestorm, so that is not going to be impact like Devastation Evoker's performance in PvP. Beast Mastery, they got like a change in the 2 set bonus. So now they nerfed it by half, like literally. So Barb Shot now fires at 100%, so it will be the normal barb shot pretty much, and was 200%, which was the stronger barb shot version. It is what it is. I think it's a deserved nerf. At least PvP, you're not going to feel too much difference. I think it's going to be 50% then. I don't know if it's going to be really viable to have a barb shot at 50%, but whatever. And then 4 set will be potent mutagen damage reduced by 50% and reduce the cooldown of Bestial Wrath by 0.25 seconds. So that's a huge nerf. Don't know if it's really like going to impact PvP, because this is like a big change. So the all ability, which is all ability, but also all pet damage increased by 10%. That is going to be much more felt, and there is maybe a world where you're not playing around 4 set as a BM hunter if it's not that impactful in PvP. So you would actually benefit from this the most, because you're not going to gimp yourself into like a set that is not going to be beneficial for you, in PvP at least. In PvE, it might be different. In PvP, there is a world where you're not playing with 4 set. You have better stats and better stat allocation for the better increase as well. Mistweaver getting a healing reduction. I can see that also in PvP, but I think it double dips with the nerf in PvP, but we'll have to see. The liberation of undermined set bonus insurance healing decreased by 30%. I think the set bonuses for healers are really they're not good for the game, because it's like procs and conditionals, and I actually don't really like the 4 sets this season, like overall. But I think the healer ones are like very problematic. It's either it does something very good, or either it is so bad that you're not going to take it. For example, Resto Shaman, the chances you're not going to take the 4 set. You're going to play without it and go full mastery as you used to in PvP. While, for example, the Resto Druid one is like one of the most busted ones. So I don't know. It is really unequal, unfortunately. Discipline Priest. Lenience no longer stacks its damage reduction effect when multiple priests apply atonement. That is not like something that's going to happen in PvP, maybe in like RBG or maybe Epic BGs or whatever, but this is like not something that's going to happen in PvP. Maybe in PvE you had that problem, but in PvP you don't. Oracle got a nerf, like damage nerf on Penance Smite and Holy Nova by 20% instead of 40%, so it will be felt. But I think the Oracle change that they made, where if you penance an ally, you're going to also shoot bolts at the enemy and vice versa, that's really strong, and I think Oracle is really the meta right now for Disc. No matter what you're nerfing, this is going to be one of the best quality of life changes that they did. And it might actually, if hero talents were to not exist anymore, that would be some sort of a talent that you could actually see on the SPEC tree. That's how good it is. There are a lot of like hero talents where you could see like that they're going to implement that at one point on the spec, because that's how gameplay changing it is to have that. So I don't know. It's also very much a quality of life. Like if you could actually like damage the enemy and at the same time penance the allies, you never have to make a choice on who to penance. You will just penance the first one you can actually do with range or with whatever, like with line of sight. So I don't know. I think Oracle is really strong, and no matter how many nerfs they could actually do to Oracle, they have to buff like Void Weaver by that's much more to make it like not worth to have the quality of life. So I don't know. Assassination Rogue, all ability damage increased by 4%. In PvP it's quite hard to justify it. In PvE it might be justified, but in PvP this is like really scary. Like 4% doesn't seem like a lot, but like if you think about all ability damage, then it becomes like very scary, because like any ability you're going to press, it's going to be a 4% increase, and in the meters it's going to maybe translate into a 3% increased damage. Depends on how it's calculated and how much uptime you have. But I think in general it's going to be beneficial for Assassination Rogue. Salty Rogues got a nerf 5% for Secret Technique. I don't know how relevant it is for PvP, and for PvE I don't know, but for PvP I don't know how relevant it is. This is a nerf, by the way. Like max stacks reduced to 8 instead of 10. This is a nerf. Like winning streaks all work the same. You're boosting your ability with the amount of stacks, and at one point the winning streak ends and you get a benefit from it from the 4 set, but the stacks are going to go back to 0 or to 1. So it's not going to be beneficial for sure. It's a nerf. Because some people read it as you get stacks faster, so but that's not how winning streak works. So it's not going to be a buff, that's for sure. So elemental shaman, they finally did a developers note. I think this should be something that they could do for every single spec, by the way, but like I would like to hear their opinion on things. Like for example, League of Legends, they do the same as well. They could do that. Whatever they're talking about rogue, why do they increase it by 4%? Like where's the data that like they're taking for it to be 4%, right? That's something that they could actually explain. But the new tier set bonuses were performing higher than we would have liked. I think that you could have seen that on the BTR, but whatever. So we're lowering the value of the new 2-piece set bonus while increasing the damage elemental shaman deal baseline. I'm going to do a TLDR. It's a straight nerf because you can actually not proc it anymore with deeply rooted elements. So you cannot activate it, the 2 set or the 4 set with it. And that sucks because you could actually do that on the PTR, and that really made the tier set literally proc every single time. It was really reliable, and you could have like a lot of fire elemental like summoned, or at least the uptime would be near like all the time, like for 100%. And you would every single time get the damage bonus, but now it's gone. So it will proc way less. It will have a slower, like lesser duration on the elemental, so it will be 6 seconds instead of 8. But the damage bonus will stay the same. It's still 8 seconds, and it will be improved. So you will do more damage on your lava bursts. You will do more damage on your lightning bolt, tempest, whatever you're going to do. In PvP, it's going to be halved, so it will be 15% instead of 30%. It is significant enough to say that it is a great 4 set for the elemental shaman. I already said that on the PTR testing that you have to go 4 set with elemental, and most likely you are going 4 set with enhancement shaman. But if you're playing on restoration shaman, then you kind of don't want to go for 4 sets. You will have to have 2 separate gear pieces. Echo of the Elements no longer causes jackpot buff to refresh when they appear. That's a nerf. And all damage dealt increased by 5% as a compensation. I don't know how big that is as a damage compensation. 5% is a lot. It's really a lot because it's all damage dealt. So also your dots, also your elementals, also your own spells. Like everything you're going to do, it's 5% more. And that is going to be very, very strong. But the issue is right now, Elemental Shaman does struggle in PvP. The loss of Primordial Wave is way bigger than I thought on the PTR. Especially since Primordial Wave itself doesn't do any damage. If it actually did damage, like a, I don't know, lava burst worthy amount of damage, then it would be interesting. But it is not the case. Like it's 100k or 150k sometimes, which is really low. So yeah, they need something, I guess. Enhancement shaman. So are performing higher than we would like, of course, because in PvE it is beyond S tier pretty much. In PvP it's a bit different. We're making adjustments to your new Flowing Spirits talent as well as the Nerubar Palace. So that's the previous tier set and the new tier set, which is the Liberation of Undermine. So I'm not going to read the full set from previous tier because we're not going to use that in PvP, and I don't really care. I don't know how many people are going to use it regardless. Flowing Spirits now has a 6% chance to summon a Feral Spirit. Is it like better than having to press the button? That's something you have to test for yourself. And now properly summons a random elemental spirit when elemental spirits are talented. Liberation of Undermine, straight up nerfs on everything. So now triggers Doom Winds for 3 seconds, which is very strong in PvP. Now increases the damage of Crash Lightning by 12% per stack. And also now increases the primary target damage of Crash Lightning by 75%. I do like the 4 set. I don't know how useful it will be in PvP. But the only thing that really makes me want to have the 4 set is the now triggers Doom Winds. Because every time you're going to do Doom Winds, it's a mini-go. Especially if you do get the procs then it's like a bit more unpredictable where and when the damage is going to come. I'm playing a storm enhancement shaman, so I don't like elementalist enhancement shaman. So I do believe the 4 set kind of plays around my playstyle, which is really cool. So I look forward to test it on live servers once we have the 4 set. We have changes on the Warlock demonology tree, like balancing at least. So 4 set, I'm going to try to be brief. Casting Hand of Gul'dan causes your active Dread stocks to cast Dread Bite at 20% instead of 50%. Hand of Gul'dan damage increased by 20%. Summoned by a Pact of Eredrune deals 15 increased damage. The Doom Gods, Gloomhound's Gloom Slash damage increased by 30% and Wild Imps by 30%. Overall, big buffs. Those are really big buffs. I think the 4 set is a straight up nerf because it was really strong. But I understand. I understand why they nerfed it. They don't want to have too much crazy damage that is like guaranteed, because it was guaranteed once you have like your Hand of Gul'dan. It will just cause increased damage. But now it's like less, obviously. Then we have Destruction Warlock. The 2 set has been adjusted, so your spells and abilities have a chance to hit a jackpot that fires a flurry of 6 damage fireballs at 100% effectiveness instead of 200%. So it is a nerf, and in casting Summon Infernal always hits a jackpot. But as compensation, Chaos Bolt increased by 20%, which in PvP will translate into way more damage. Summon Infernal damage increased by 35%. I don't think that's going to be that relevant, but it's still there. They're going to adjust a few things from Hellcaller, so basically Wither damage is increased by 35%, but it will tick way less often. Instead of every 2 seconds, it will be every 3 seconds, but that will also affect the soul shard generation, so that will have, it will feel less good, that's for sure. We could recognize that with these changes, damage will also be impacted. It's like across the board, it will impact, but whatever. Hellcaller Blackened Soul damage increased by 40%. That's really big. Xan's Ferocity now increases fire and shadow damage by 4% instead of 2%. Warrior Arms execute damage reduced by 15%. Now, I don't know in PvE. In PvP, they're strong, very strong. But in PvE, I've been told that Arms is a laughing stock. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's like real. But overall, I think they kind of need some help in like being a full-on identity for Arms. I feel like they need a niche that is not filled by other classes. Now, PvP wise, those are the interesting things for me. Those were also interesting because they are affected by PvP, but whatever. The Glad set will give you 5% more health, basically. So the Trinket, double Trinket, will give you 5% more health to tanks and damage dealers, but also to healers. So it will compensate the burstness that is currently on the live servers. I don't know how big that will be. It could be that they are going to regret it in back battle. It will depend on the tuning pretty much. But now the interesting things, again, as you may know, DK got nerfed. Blood DK got nerfed by 50%, who cares about Blood DK right now. But Death's Cold Embrace, which is the cool PvP talent that showcased multiple times on this channel, asked for nerfs on the PTR, didn't happen. Kind of showcased in a game Soul Shuffle, but also showcased like on like pure how to deal the amount of damage that you are going to deal with this talent. That is going to be nerfed, so it will increase by 400% instead of 750%. I still think it's good, but it will not be an insta-lock every single time. I think versus very high mobility classes where you know you're going to be left into the dirt whenever you're going to press that Pillar of Frost with the Death's Cold Embrace PvP taunt, you're going to be too slow to get it like do enough damage. You have to think, if the damage is not high enough, you should be able to stick for the full damage. If it's not the case, then it becomes a bit less interesting, because then you could maybe put another taunt which is not going to gimp your capacity to stick on the enemy. 4%, what does it mean damage wise? If I'm critting for 1 million currently, I will be critting for a bit less. It will be 350%. I don't know. I would say the half of it. So I will be critting for around 600k, 500k, and my normal hits will be around like 400k, maybe 300k. I don't know if it's really that worth it in all scenarios. I think in BGs it will still be worth it because obviously that zone is really big. So if you can actually cleave a lot of people with it, it is lethal. But in PvP arenas, I don't know if it's going to be like an insta-lock every single time because obviously if you have like 3 hits, it's not going to be enough to KO someone. But with current balancing from the live servers without those balance changes, it was an instant win. Like most of the time, I got like multiple CDs from just like one press. I did a lot of twos with like a disc priest, and it was very annoying for them to deal with it. You just had to survive 1 minute every single time, and you had like one of the biggest 1 minute go you could have in a game. But I do miss the PvP, like the AoE stun from Mimosas Winter. That was like something that you could control a bit better, and was like very lethal in those setups. But if you're doing 3v3 and you're playing with Devastation Evoker or whatever, you can actually still have that setup. So I think it's fine. I think the PvP talent is not dead, but it will be a bit more situational where versus very high like very high mobility casters or melees, you're not going to insta pick it. Same for the healers. Like if you're facing versus a healer that has a way to get away from you, then that talent is going to be kind of dead in arrival pretty much. But right now, damage is fine. I think 4% is the least they could do. If they do more, then the PvP talent is dead and you have to remove all of the restrictions. I do believe they could maybe remove the movement speed a bit, like at least like put it a bit higher so you could actually chase someone with it. Even whenever someone is snared, at least you get like the possibility to still deal damage. Right now it's not the case, so I don't know. It depends on the damage and it depends on the drawbacks, because there are drawbacks. Like it's not like a pure win, so it has to be good. If it's not good, then you're not going to take it. A Druid. So Berserk got nerfed by 5%. Yeah, it's a nerf obviously, but if you're doing Berserk, it's not really for the 10% like increased damage you would actually do Berserk. It has a lot of things, like for example combo generation. You have like the stealth rake, which is also very strong. You have multiple things that are into the thinking behind Berserk. So I think it's fine to have like a 5% nerf. Although it comes way too late. I think if it was like the previous season, people would understand a bit better. Ferocious Bite damage reduced by 10%. That's going to be big enough to actually be felt, and I don't know if it's really justified. I think that the problems are the bleeds. I don't know if you guys want to play around big leads again, or if you want to play around big bites. That's something you have to decide for yourself. I'm not really a feral player, so I have no opinion currently. Magi Spark now echo spells at 25% effectiveness instead of 50, so that's a nerf on a big CD. But compensation is arcane missiles and arcane barrage by 12% increased, which is going to be most likely felt. I got arcane barrage by arcane mage by 1.5 million normal hits, so it is significant enough to be felt, in my opinion. Blazing barriers, which is the new PvP talent that you can take as a fire, frost mage, and arcane mage. The fire part is going to be nerfed by 40%, so it will be 60% of damage absorbed instead of 100%. So it's still going to be top damage, but obviously it's not going to be as strong as before. And Frost got also that part nerfed, because obviously they also use that barrier in the Frost Fire tree, so it's going to be good to have that nerfed. Mistweaver, Jade Empowerment damage increase reduced to 1.2, like 1,250% instead of 2.5k percent. So it is definitely going to be felt. But it was really obnoxious to play against. Like you could literally get 2 tapped by a Mistweaver. If you get stunned like in a unfortunate position, you could just like literally die from it. I think it can be strong and it should be strong, but I think it should not two tap players, and that's going to be a good nerf going forward. I think rushing wind kick is a bit more healthy for the game right now, in current game standards, which I thought differently like past season, but whatever. Slicing Winds, which is the new PvP talent, like not PvP talent, but the new talent on the spec tree that is the same as Plunderstorm. They're reduced by 20% in PvP combat, which is worth to mention because it did 2 million damage. I picked up my Windwalker and did like insane combos where you were destroying people. It's still a mobility spell, guys, so it should not be doing more damage than a Rising Sun kick or like a Impart Blackout kick or like Fist of Fury. It should be contained into the department of mobility. It can do damage, but it should not be doing like one hit KO damage. Arms Warriors got nerfed pretty big, but I think it's deserved. And I still think it's playable and very good. But these nerfs are going to be good enough to make people not have to be worried about Arms Warrior every single time. So Morstrike got reduced by 25% PvP combat. Remember, you got also a 60% increase at the start of the season in PvE, which is going to be compensated. So instead of doing like a 3 million crit, it will be a 2.5, 2.6 million crit, which is still a lot of damage. Execute got increased by 20% to offset the nerfs from PvE. I think Execute is not doing too much damage these days, so it's a good buff. Demolish final hit damage reduced by 30% PvP combat. I find it kind of dumb. I think you already pushed them like Arms and Fury way too hard on the Slayer hero talent. This is going to even more push them towards Slayer, which I think is hard to balance. Demolish final hit being nerfed is, in my opinion, not smart. It's already very hard to land. People can just sidestep it and it will not get damage. Obviously, if you combine it with a stun, then you kind of deserve to get damage in. So I don't understand why they do such nerfs, but whatever. Rampage got nerfed by 15% PvP combat playstorm as well, so that's very big for Fury as well. Those two are like really, really strong right now, but with the nerf, it's going to be felt towards their kit. And then protection, they literally killed my boy. Like any tank spec, basically not welcome in PvP. So Execute got nerfed by 20%, unfortunate, and all damage reduced by 15%, unfortunately. Why do I say unfortunate? I don't play Protection Warrior these days, but I say unfortunate because they don't seem to want to make tanks viable or good in PvP or accepted in PvP. It should be that you could actually play a tank and feel useful. I feel like right now, if you're playing a tank, it's either a troll pick or you are cheesing with it, but there's no real strategy behind it. While if you're thinking, other games that had tanks did it pretty well. For example, Warhammer Online, I really loved the tank role because it actually meant something. Obviously, you had like RVR, which is with towers and whatever. You kind of need tanks to progress. But I kind of wish World of Warcraft turned tanks into support play styles in PvP instead of like literally go by the books of PvE, because they don't go with each other. That's unfortunate. The rest is literally the same as above. So this marks the end of the video. I gave my opinion on every single spec change. Yeah, I think it's a good patch. I think it's a good start towards nerfs and buffs. I do feel like it's weird that they didn't touch MM or BM, or they didn't touch Windwalker enough, for example. So I don't know. I feel like the Arms nerf is good, the Frosty Kid nerf is good. They don't kill those specs. That's all I'm asking. Like, I think Arms should always be around Morstrike, no matter what you're like saying. Like, I understand, like, it makes it very, very simple. It makes it very easy to play. But Arms Warrior has always been like this, always. So I don't know if it's really something that people wish it to be, but it never was. So it's very hard for me to like the rend builds and the deep wounds build that we actually got forced into in Dragonflight. I don't want to play that around that anymore. So I want to have only more strikes, overpowers, maybe slam, buff it again, and then play around your survivability, your kit, your mobility, and also your CC. That's something I wanted to say really quickly. Again, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.